We shared a fence for 10 years. I repaired it every spring. Then I found a notice of property damage on my door and a $900 bill. You should have built it right, he said. I didn't fight it until the day I found his hidden extension cord running into my garage, and that's when I live in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Lived here for 13 years now. Small house, decent yard, 2-car garage. It's not fancy, but it's mine. I keep it up, mow the lawn every Sunday, shovel my sidewalk when it snows, and fix what needs fixing. One of those things was the fence in my backyard. It's an old wooden privacy fence that runs along both sides of my yard, but the worst side is the one I share with Alan. That's my neighbor. We're not friends. Never were. He moved in a year after I did. Always kept to himself. No barbecues, no laughs, no hey, never. Just silent nods or nothing at all. I figured maybe he was just private. The fence has been a problem since I moved in. First winter we had, a whole section leaned over from the wind and the frost. I went out that spring, dug new holes, replaced 2 posts, and put the section back up. Didn't ask him for help. Didn't think I needed to. It was 60-40 on my side anyway. Every spring after that, something else would go wrong. Slats popping off, warped wood, another leaning post. Sometimes I'd catch Alan out back, and he'd glance at it, then walk right back inside. Never said anything. Never offered to help. I just handled it. I didn't mind. Not at first. I like fixing things. I've got tools, a workbench in the garage, a good set of hands. But after a while, I noticed he was using the fence more than I was. He hung lights on it, leaned tools and trash bins against it, even strung up a net one summer for his kids' trampoline. Still never said a word. Then, last March, I came home from work and found a piece of paper taped to my front door. A folded sheet in a clear plastic sleeve. I pulled it down and read it on the porch. Notice of property damage. I remember the words exactly. Due to negligent construction and failure to maintain a shared structure, I have incurred costs related to fence repair and replacement. Attached is the invoice. I expect payment within 15 business days. Attached was a copy of a Home Depot bill for $897.22. Lumber, concrete, screws, stain. At first I thought it was a joke. I actually laughed. Then I saw the signature at the bottom. Alan M. Next door the next morning, I waited until he was outside. He was raking gravel out by his side gate. I walked over and held out the paper. I said, "What is this?" He didn't stop raking. Just said, "You should have built it right the first time." That was it. No discussion. No warning. Just a bill. Like I was a contractor that screwed him over. I should have fought it, but I didn't. I figured if I made a big deal out of it, it would drag on. I didn't want tension. I didn't want to go back and forth with some guy I barely knew over a fence. So I paid it. Took money I'd been saving for a new lawnmower. Sent him a check. Didn't even get a thank you. Things were quiet after that. Spring turned to summer. I stopped saying hello. Then in July, something strange happened. It was a Saturday. I'd been out most of the day running errands. Got home late afternoon, went into the garage to put away some bags. The garage light was on. That was weird because I hadn't been in there in at least 3 days. I usually shut everything off when I leave. I walked over to the switch, flipped it down, but the light stayed on. That's when I noticed a heavy-duty orange extension cord running along the floor behind some bins. It snaked along the wall, disappeared behind my tool cabinet. I pulled the bins away. Followed the cord. There was a hole. Small, near the base of the wall. Maybe 1.5 inches wide. Drilled clean through. I knelt down, looked at it. The cord went straight out the other side. I opened the side garage door and walked around back. Sure enough, the cord ran under the fence. Into Alan's yard. And on the other side, plugged into a big black plug splitter, were 3 things: a mini fridge, a bug zapper, and a goddamn inflatable pool pump. He'd been siphoning my electricity. For how long, I don't know. But long enough to make my bill jump by about $30 a month. Something I'd noticed, but didn't think much of. I just assumed I'd been running the AC too often. I stood there staring at that plug for a long time. I felt my chest start to burn. That's when I stopped being polite. I didn't go over there right away. I didn't yank the cord or knock on his door. I went back into my garage, turned the light off again, sat in a folding chair, and stared at the hole in the wall. I wanted to think. I wanted to be sure. So that night, I turned off every breaker in the garage except the one the cord was plugged into. Then I waited. Next evening, I checked the meter. The wheel was spinning. Fast. Even though my garage was off. So I grabbed my phone and started taking pictures. The cord, the hole, the connection on both ends. Then I went to Alan's yard the next morning while he was at work and snapped a shot of the pool pump and fridge setup from over the fence. I even got one with the cord running through his tomato plants. I printed them out. I was planning something, but not the usual loud confrontation. No shouting over the fence. No threats. I was tired of being reasonable. I wanted him to feel small, cornered. So I wrote up a notice of unauthorized utility use in the exact same style as the letter he gave me. I itemized the power usage based on estimated wattage, pool pump, fridge, bug zapper. I included the line from my bill where my average jumped. Total amount, $312.45. Due in 15 business days. I taped it to his front door. Same plastic sleeve. Same folded format. Then I waited. The next morning, the cord was gone. Just gone. Like it had never been there. But Alan didn't say a word. 3 days later, I came home to find a pile of broken fence planks in my driveway. Old ones, rotten, warped, the kind I'd replaced last spring. On top of the pile was a piece of cardboard with Sharpie written across it. "You fix your side, I'll fix mine." I laughed. I actually laughed out loud. He wanted to start a war now. So I did something petty. I admit it. I went to Home Depot, bought a small surveillance camera, $79.99, motion detecting, records to the cloud. I mounted it on the corner of my garage facing the shared fence line. Made sure he'd see it if he ever glanced up. Next night, I caught him on camera tossing something over the fence. It was a dead squirrel. Just tossed it into my flower bed. That's when I went to the police. I didn't think they'd do much. And they didn't. But I made a report. Showed the pictures, the camera footage, the letter he gave me months ago, my response. The officer said it sounded like neighbor harassment and logged it. I thought maybe that would scare him off. But Alan didn't scare. He escalated. A week later, my garage power shut off completely. I checked the breakers. Nothing tripped. The outside wiring box looked fine. So I called an electrician. Turns out, someone had unscrewed the external GFCI outlet and disconnected the wiring from the inside. No visible damage. Just undone. The electrician said, "You sure someone didn't do this on purpose?" I was sure. And that's when I stopped playing defense. After the electrician reconnected everything, I made a few calls. I have a cousin who works in real estate law down in Des Moines. I told him everything. He listened quietly, then said, "If he's tampering with your property, that's criminal. And if he's using shared boundaries to mess with your utilities, you could push this further." He suggested something I hadn't thought about, a property line survey. It cost me $380. I hired a local surveyor who came out, did the measurements, flagged the boundary. When I got the report back a week later, I stared at it for a long time. Turns out, the fence Alan used for his pool setup, the one he strung lights on, leaned junk against, and accused me of building wrong, it wasn't on the property line. It was 2 feet into my yard. That same fence he sent me a $900 bill for was sitting squarely on my side. I went into my garage, pulled out the survey report, the letter he gave me, the photos of his extension cord, the power usage breakdown I'd created, the police report, the squirrel photo, and the electrician invoice. I put them all into a binder. Then I wrote a cover letter. 1 page. Calm. Clear. Outlining every incident. I mailed it certified to his HOA board. And just for good measure, I dropped off a copy at the city zoning department. I didn't need to say much. The documentation spoke for itself. 2 weeks later, Alan's back porch lights were gone. The bug zapper? Gone. Pool?
Drained.
That fence? City ordered him to tear it down. Not the whole fence, just the section that crossed onto my property. I came home one day to see him in the backyard, red-faced, yanking boards out one by one. I didn't say anything. I just sat on my steps and drank a soda while he worked. But it didn't end there. One night, maybe 2 weeks after the teardown, I woke up around 1:30 a.m. to a popping sound. I thought maybe it was fireworks. Then I smelled it. Burning plastic. I ran outside in my boxers and found smoke coming from my garage. Not flames, just a smoldering spot by the wiring box. The same one that had been tampered with. The siding was melted in a patch. The camera I had? Smashed. I called the fire department. They said it was likely an electrical fire, maybe caused by faulty tampering. They couldn't prove who did it. But I knew. And this time, I didn't just file a police report. I hired a lawyer. The lawyer I hired wasn't cheap. Her name was Valerie, mid-40s, sharp as hell, and calm in a way that made people nervous. I brought her everything. The binder, the police reports, the photos, the fire damage quote, even the original $900 fence bill. She flipped through it without saying much. Then she looked at me and said, "If this was a one-off, I'd say let it go. But this is a pattern. He's built a case against himself." We filed a civil suit, trespassing, property damage, unauthorized utility use, and harassment. She said we'd keep it under $10,000 to stay in small claims court. Less expensive, more direct. But even before the court date, word got around the neighborhood. People I barely knew started stopping me on the sidewalk. One woman 2 streets over told me Alan once threatened her over leaf runoff from her tree. Another neighbor said Alan reported him to the HOA for inappropriate gutter noise. Whatever the hell that means. The guy had a history. I guess once someone like that targets you, they don't stop until you show your teeth. 3 weeks before court, I noticed a U-Haul in his driveway. I thought maybe he was moving. My heart actually skipped, like maybe I wouldn't have to finish this fight. But then I saw him hauling wood. Long planks.
Fresh.
Straight into his backyard. He was building a new fence.
On his side this time.
2 feet in from the line. Tall, solid, zero visibility. It was a message. I'm cutting you off. I let him build it. Quietly. Didn't even watch. Court came fast. He showed up in an old sports coat and jeans, acted like it was all a misunderstanding. Valerie wiped the floor with him. We didn't ask for much, just reimbursement for the repairs, the electrician, the power bill spike, and damages for the garage fire cleanup. Total came out to just over $4,800. The judge ruled in our favor. Alan didn't look at me once during the ruling, just stared at the floor like it owed him something. But here's where it twisted again. 3 days after the judgment, I got a call from a local reporter. Small paper. Said he was working on a story about property disputes and got my name through the city permit office. I didn't want to talk at first. But then he said, I also spoke with a former neighbor of Alan's. Said he tried something similar with them back in 2009. That's when it hit me. This wasn't just about me. Alan does this. Picks quiet neighbors, crosses lines, literally and legally, and waits for them to back down. But this time I didn't. And I wasn't done yet. The story in the paper ran the next week. Front of the community section. Nothing dramatic, just titled, When Good Fences Don't Make Good Neighbors. But it laid everything out. The photos, the court ruling, even a quote from that woman Alan fought with in 2009. After that, things changed fast. I started getting nods from people who used to ignore me. One guy down the block offered to help repaint my garage siding where the fire had scorched it. I didn't realize how many people Alan had ticked off until he became the one people warned new neighbors about. But Alan, he didn't take the attention well. He started keeping his curtains closed. Stopped doing yard work. I'd see his wife out front sometimes, chain-smoking while pacing the porch. Then one afternoon, a police cruiser showed up at his place. No sirens, no rush, just a quiet visit. I never found out what it was about. But 2 days later, Alan put the house up for sale. Now here's where it got real personal. About a week after the for sale sign went up, I got a letter in my mailbox.
No stamp.
Just folded in half, stuck in the box. My name written across the front in shaky handwriting. It was from Alan's wife. Not long. Just a note. She wrote, "I didn't know about the cord. I didn't know about most of it. He said you were harassing him. I believed him. I was wrong. Sorry for the mess he made. We're leaving. Hope you get your piece." It knocked the wind out of me. I'd spent months thinking she was in on it, or at least standing by him. But now it felt like she was just surviving him. That same day, I was walking past his fence, his new fence, when I noticed something sticking out near the base. Just a sliver of silver. I got down, pulled it loose. It was one of my old fence nails. Same kind I used every spring for 10 years. Bent, a little rusted. Embedded in the dirt on his side now, under the clean new boards. That's when it really hit me. All those years, I'd been fixing that fence thinking I was keeping the peace, maintaining something we both needed. But the whole time, he was just waiting for the chance to use it against me. Sometimes I wonder if he ever would have stopped if I hadn't found that cord. If he would have just kept taking one quiet inch at a time. And the part that gets to me most is how long I let him.